Hey everyone, how's it going? So, I'm super excited to chat with you today about a book that completely changed how I think about creativity and honestly, how I live my life. It's called Big Magic: Creative Living Beyond Fear by Elizabeth Gilbert. You might know her from Eat, Pray, Love. But this one is different. It's like having a heart-to-heart with your wisest, coolest friend who just gets it when it comes to the messy, beautiful business of making things. I picked it up because I felt a bit stuck, a bit overwhelmed by the idea of being creative enough. And what I found inside was pure liberation. At its core, Big Magic is all about helping us live a life that's less about fear and more about curiosity and joy. Gilbert argues that creativity isn't just for a chosen few, for artists in the traditional sense. No, she says, if you're alive, you're a creative person. We all have these incredible treasures hidden inside us, and the central question of creative living is, do you have the courage to bring forth the treasures that are hidden within you? It's not necessarily about becoming a famous poet living on a mountaintop, but about choosing a life driven by curiosity rather than by fear. Think about her friend Susan, for example. Susan took up figure skating again at 40 after giving it up as a kid because she wasn't champion material. She didn't do it to win medals or become a pro. She did it because it made her feel alive, joyous, and yes, creative. It wasn't about the outcome. It was about unfolding a certain beauty within her life that she couldn't access any other way. That's what creative living looks like for many of us. It's an amplified life, a hell of a lot more interesting life. But let's be real, right? This path is scary. Why do we often hold back? Well, Gilbert lists a whole bunch of reasons. We're afraid we have no talent, afraid of rejection, criticism, or being ignored. We worry someone else did it better, or that our dreams are embarrassing. We're afraid of being exposed as a hack, or upsetting our family, or unleashing our innermost demons. It's a bottomless list, and it's all just scary, scary, scary. Gilbert herself admits she was born terrified, a pitiful pearl as her dad caught her, but her Minnesota farm-raised mother had a simple strategy: make her do exactly what she dreaded most. That's how Gilbert learned that arguing for your limitations means you get to keep them. And who wants to keep their limitations, really? She came to a huge realization about fear. My fear was boring. It always had the same tedious lyrics: stop, stop, stop. Stop. It was unorganic, a mass-produced item. She emphasizes that you need fear for basic survival. It stops you from walking into traffic or marrying a terrible person. But you absolutely do not need it in the realm of creative expression. Your fear is like a mall cop who thinks he's a Navy SEAL, overprotective, and constantly assuming uncertain outcomes will lead to horrible death. So how do you deal with it? You don't kill it off, you make space for it. She has this brilliant metaphor of a road trip with creativity and fear. You say, dearest fear, creativity and I are about to go on a road trip together. I understand you'll be joining us. Because you always do. You acknowledge its presence, you respect its job, but then you firmly tell it, you're allowed to have a seat, and you're allowed to have a voice, but you're not allowed to have a vote. You're not allowed to touch the roadmaps, but above all else, my dear old familiar friend, you are absolutely forbidden to drive. That's how you keep going, because if you can't travel comfortably alongside your fear, you'll never go anywhere interesting. Now let's talk about the magic part. Gilbert believes that ideas are disembodied, energetic life forms with consciousness and will floating around us, looking for human partners to bring them into the world. When an idea finds you, it sends signals, chills, hair standing up, that feeling like you're falling in love. Then it asks, do you want to work with me? She tells this amazing story about a novel she failed to write. She got this incredible idea based on a story her sweetheart Philippe told her about a highway project in the Amazon that the jungle simply swallowed whole. She had all the size of inspiration, said yes, and started clearing space, doing research, studying Portuguese. But then real-life drama hit. Her husband faced immigration issues, and she had to put the novel aside for 2 years to write a memoir, Committed. When she finally came back to her Amazon novel, she discovered the living heart of my novel was gone. The idea had grown tired of waiting and left her. She concludes, if inspiration is allowed to unexpectedly enter you, it is also allowed to unexpectedly exit you. But here's where it gets truly wild. A few months later, she met another celebrated novelist, Anne Patchett. They became pen pals, writing long letters, and one day, Anne casually mentioned she was working on a new novel about the Amazon jungle. When they finally met in person, they discovered their plots were almost identical. A middle-aged spinster from Minnesota, in love with her married boss, sent to the Amazon to find missing money in a person. Gilbert says, that is not a genre, people. They realized the idea had bounced from Gilbert's mind. Perhaps even exchanged in the kiss when they first met and landed in Antas. Instead of feeling robbed or angry, Gilbert saw it as a terrific little miracle and a glittering piece of evidence that all my most outlandish beliefs about creativity might actually be true, that ideas are alive, that ideas do seek the most available human collaborator, that ideas do have a conscious will, that ideas do move from soul to soul. This is what she calls multiple discovery, a phenomenon where scientists or artists come up with the same idea at the same time, as if the idea is out there looking for a host. She introduces the beautiful metaphor from the poet Ruth Stone, who said she could sometimes hear poems galloping toward her, and she'd have to run like hell to catch them by the tail and take dictation before they galloped off searching for another poet. This highlights that ideas are external. Sometimes they come easily fairy dust. Sometimes it's hard labor, but you show up either way. Gilbert also touches on the ancient Roman concept of genius. They didn't believe a gifted person was a genius, but that they had a genius, an external guardian deity of inspiration. This is a wise psychological construct because it protects the artist's ego if your work succeeds. You thank your genius, avoiding narcissism. If it fails, you could say, hey, don't look at me, my genius didn't show up today. This helps avoid the fate of someone like Harper Lee, who Gilbert suggests became pinned beneath the boulder of her own reputation after To Kill a Mockingbird because she felt the pressure to constantly top that. Gilbert argues, if you cannot win, then you must not continue to play. Her response to her own trail of success was to keep making things, regardless of external expectations. Now let's talk about permission. One of the book's most liberating messages is you do not need anybody's permission to live a creative life. She shares how her parents, though not artists, taught her this through their quietly impudent self-assertion. Her father, an engineer, also became a Christmas tree farmer and a beekeeper simply because he was curious and figured he could do it. He even famously suggested, I suggest that you remove the suggestion box when asked to create one. This spirit of doing whatever the hell they wanted shaped Gilbert's whole path. Our ancestors were all makers, she reminds us, so creativity is our birthright. She encourages us to cultivate creative entitlement, which isn't behaving like a princess but believing you are allowed to be here, to have your own voice and vision. The poet David Whyte calls it the arrogance of belonging. It helps combat that nasty inner dialogue that says, who the hell do you think you are? Trying to be creative? You suck. You need to define yourself and declare your intent. I'm a writer, I'm a singer, I'm a gardener, I'm a dancer. I am this and I am that. And I am also this other thing too. I don't yet know exactly what I am, but I'm curious enough to go find out. Your soul will mobilize ecstatically, she promises, because this is what it was born for, and don't worry about being original. Gilbert says, most things have already been done but they have not yet been done by you. Authenticity is far more important than originality. Just say what you want to say with all your heart, and it will feel original. Also, you don't need to save the world with your creativity. She says, I would so much rather that you wrote a book in order to entertain yourself than to help me, or to save yourself, or relieve a psychic burden. She wrote deep magic for her own pleasure. Your own reasons to create are reason enough. Gilbert also advises caution about schooling. While not against higher education, she warns against crippling indebtedness for creative pursuits. She says, nobody needs that less than an artist. Instead, she suggests pushing yourself deeper into the world or inward, recognizing the education you already have just by living. If you are older, you have very likely earned a doctorate in living. She shares her own path working various day jobs, writing on the side, collecting rejection letters. Her policy was, you hit it to me, I'm going to hit it straight back out into the universe. She didn't have connections or a patron, so she had to announce herself repeatedly. She reminds us of Werner Herzog's blind advice to a struggling filmmaker, quit your complaining. It's not the world's job to enjoy the films you make, and it's certainly not the world's obligation to pay for your dreams. Nobody wants to hear it. Steal a camera if you must, but stop whining and get back to work. It's a reminder of self-respect and liberation. A powerful trick she recommends is to stop complaining. It's annoying, boring, and it scares away inspiration. Instead, she proclaims she enjoys her creativity, every aspect of it. I believe that enjoying your work with all your heart is the only truly subversive position left to take as a creative person these days. What about pigeonholing? She doesn't care about the difference between high and low art, or whether someone is a genius or a fraud. She just says, let other people pigeonhole you however they need to, and always remember that people's judgments about you are none of your business. Just keep doing your thing. This extends to public reaction too. Her book Eat, Pray, Love generated extreme reactions, but she realized, I refuse to take on additional jobs, such as trying to police what anybody thinks about my work as it leaves my desk. If people hate your work, she says, just smile sweetly and suggest as politely as you possibly can that they go make their own fucking art. Then stubbornly continue making yours. Persistence is key. Gilbert made vows as a teenager to write forever, regardless of the result, and to always support herself financially, so her writing wouldn't be burdened by having to pay the bills. She kept those vows even when she was shamefully irresponsible in every other imaginable way. She learned that whatever you practice, you will improve at. She also embraces the idea that frustration is not an interruption of your process. Frustration is the process. This leads to a famous quote she highlights from writer Mark Manson: "What's your favorite flavor of shit sandwich?" Every single pursuit comes with its downsides, its lousy side effects. The question isn't just what are you passionate about, but what are you passionate enough about that you can endure the most disagreeable aspects of the work. If you truly love something, you won't mind eating its shit sandwich. This is why she kept day jobs for so long, to protect her creativity from financial pressure, becoming her own patron, like Toni Morrison or J.K. Rowling. You can always make your art on the side of your bread and butter job. She reminds us that most people throughout history have made art in stolen moments, using scraps of borrowed time. The essential ingredients for creativity are courage, enchantment, permission, persistence, and trust, and these are universally accessible. She encourages you to have an affair with your creativity. Stop treating it like a tired, old, unhappy marriage, and start regarding it with the fresh eyes of a passionate lover. Sneak off. Lose sleep, make sacrifices, because it matters to you. It's sexy. Even the old writer Tristram Shandy knew this trick with feeling blocked. He'd dress in his finest clothes, shave, put on perfume, to seduce creativity back to my side. Fake it till you make it, and get rid of perfectionism. Gilbert calls it fear in fancy shoes and a mean coat. It stops people from starting or finishing work. The writer Rebecca Sonnet says, the perfect is not only the enemy of the good, it's also the enemy of the realistic, the possible, and the fun. She shares her mother's simple adage, done is better than good. Her own novel, The Signature of All Things, was far from perfect, but she finished it and released it. She learned that what is sacred is the time that you spend working on the project, and what that time does to expand your imagination, and what that expanded imagination does to transform your life. Finally, trust. Gilbert highlights the idea from Dr. Robin Wald Kimmerer's botany class. Do you love nature? Yes. Do you believe that nature loves you in return? No. The problem is this lack of reciprocity. Gilbert applies this to creativity. Do you believe that writing loves you in return? Most artists are taught to believe creativity torments them, but Gilbert argues that creativity wants to work with you, not harm you. She has chosen to believe that her work loves her as much as she loves it, and that this source of love and play is boundless. This is her stubborn gladness. She challenges us to choose your delusion. If you're gonna live by a delusion, and we all do, why not choose a helpful one? Like, the work wants to be made, and it wants to be made through you. She advocates for the trickster energy over the martyr energy. The martyr says, life is pain, and nobody will ever understand me, ending up in a heap of broken glory. The trickster says, life is interesting, knows it's all just a game, and trots off to enjoy another day. The trickster trusts the universe to play with him. A great example of trickster energy is how Brené Brown, a renowned sociologist, wrote her book by dictating her stories to friends who took notes, rather than suffering alone in isolation. The serious book was written with laughter and fun. And speaking of lightening up, she says your creative work is not your baby. If you see it as your baby, you'll be too precious with it, unable to cut or change it or handle criticism. Instead, she says, everything I have ever written has brought me into being. Every project has matured me in a different way. The work isn't your child, you are its baby, and it helps raise you. Finally, she urges us to forget about passion if it's not striking you. Instead, cultivate curiosity. Passion can feel intimidating, but curiosity is milder, quieter, more welcoming, and more democratic. It simply asks, is there anything you're interested in? Even a tiny bit. Follow the clue, no matter how small, and see where it leads. Her own massive novel, The Signature of All Things, started with a tiny curiosity about gardening and the origins of the plants in her backyard. It only worked because I said yes to every single tiny clue of curiosity that I had noticed around me. When you hit failure, and you will, remember it's just your ego suffering, not your soul. Your soul desires wonder, so do something else. Einstein called it combinatory play, dabbling in another creative channel to unblock the first. Like Clive James, who got out of a deep depression after a creative failure by obsessively painting stars on children's bicycles, eventually realizing that the simple act of making something, even if useless, healed him and led him back to writing. Inspiration will always be drawn to motion. The fiercest trust of all, she says, is to put your work out there even if you know you might fail. The outcome cannot matter. You were born to create, regardless of the outcome. Her final story is about little brother, an aspiring painter who showed up to a fancy masquerade ball dressed as a lobster when the theme was medieval court. He almost ran away in shame but decided to walk proudly onto the dance floor. He announced, I am the court lobster, and everyone left him. He danced with the Queen of Belgium. Gilbert says, I have never created anything in my life that did not make me feel, at some point or another, like I was the guy who just walked into a fancy ball wearing a homemade lobster costume. But you must stubbornly walk into that room, head held high, and never apologize or be ashamed. So what does all this mean for us today? In a world that often pressures us for perfection, originality, and immediate success, Big Magic offers a profound counter-narrative. It tells us that our creative impulses are ancient, inherent, and always available. It's less about the grand outcome and more about the joyful process, the ongoing conversation with inspiration. It's about showing up, being curious, and allowing ourselves to play. My advice to you, if you're feeling that little nudge of an idea, that flicker of curiosity, is to just say yes. Take that first tiny step. Don't worry about where it will lead, or if it will be good enough. Just make something. Because as Gilbert reminds us with the beautiful Balinese metaphor, even meaningless dances can become holy dances through the sheer act of playful, open creation. It's a paradox. Creativity is sacred, and it is not sacred. What we make matters enormously, and it doesn't matter at all. Only when we're at our most playful can divinity finally get serious with us. This book can truly transform your relationship with creating, whether it's writing, painting, baking, or even just gardening. It tells you to calm down, trust the process, and get to work. Because the most important thing is that the treasures that are hidden inside you are hoping you will say yes. And that, my friends, is a call worth answering.